the kids alone! Leave the kids alone! Leave the kids alone!
Harrison Faulkner for True North. The largest protest against gender ideology in Canadian history took place in our nation's capital yesterday, and I was on the ground to capture the scenes. Organized by Chris Elston, better known as Billboard Chris, and student activist leader Josh Alexander, hundreds of parents, children, and students from diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds showed up to peacefully reject gender ideology and indoctrination in Canadian schools. Now, on the other side, hundreds of counter-protesters also showed up to disrupt the event, block the planned march, and in their words, drown out the hate, despite the fact that the protesters were far more peaceful than the counter-protesters were. But nonetheless, there they were, making most of the noise, causing most of the trouble, disguising their faces, whether it was in black bloc like Antifa, or they were wearing masks, and of course, waving their rainbow and transgender flags. I approached the group of counter-protesters to see if anyone wanted to talk to an independent journalist and explain why they were there, and as you can see, the group that was there to apparently drown out the hate wasn't so happy to see an independent journalist wanting to ask them some questions. We're going to try and ask some people why they're here, what brought them out. Whoa! We're going to ask some people out here what brought them out here and what their issue is with some people opposing gender ideology in schools. They're going to try and block you from seeing the counter-protesters. And here come the sirens. Here come the sirens. Is this what protecting trans lives looks like? Now, leading up to this protest, groups like Horizon Ottawa, Anti-Hate Network, and other far-left organizations tried to rally the troops to oppose this protest organized by Billboard Chris. A press release put out by Horizon Ottawa labeled the event an assembly of transphobic fascists. They also went on to say that there's a growing connection between the anti-transgender movement and white supremacists. And as you can see now, that wasn't exactly what it looked like on the ground. We've all seen the reports and viral videos coming out of our schools these days. At some point in Canadian history, our schools went from looking like this to looking like this. And the parents that showed up to this protest yesterday aren't happy about it one bit. Take a listen at what they have to say.
We teach about this, and they are kids, and even the baby, my son, he's in KG2. They start to learn him in 21 of June. They have a pride. They have a celebrate for kids. Like, I don't know, like what kind of life we are live, and in this Canada, it's a freedom. It's a freedom for everyone.
Well, I think it's horrible because it's an agenda that's forced on our children against parents' wishes, against parents' knowledge, and it's like the state is trying to inculcate certain values in our children that we may not share and sort of separate them out from us.
Our kids are suffering from witnessing things that they have never seen before. They don't know how to process it. They don't know how to understand it.
School is for education, for learning about math, English, science, that type of stuff, not for them to learn about other sex, and they are just children. They shouldn't be learning about this stuff, and I believe that they should just leave the kids alone.
We're just here to support the children, basically. Adults, we're fine with them doing whatever they want. All we're asking is that children be left alone, that their innocence and purity be left intact. That's it.
We are protesting the shoving of their ideology to our kids in school, inappropriate media, inappropriate content in school environment, and it's none of their business who has what sexual preference, and it's not for kids to be exposed to that.
It's not an education for our kids. Education, it's math, history, geographic. This is not an education. We're here to protect our kids.
There were some political figures in attendance as well yesterday. On the Conservative side, Derek Sloan, the former Conservative Member of Parliament and also Conservative leadership candidate, spoke with True North about what his message would be to conservatives at both the provincial and federal level who don't seem willing at all to fight back against gender ideology. Here's what he had to say about that.
This is a lightning rod issue. It will become more so as more people wake up to it. Be at the front of the train, not the back. Unfortunately, the Conservatives are very afraid to touch social issues of any stripe. They need to remember that all issues are on the plate when it comes to winning over voters. And in this particular crowd, there's a diverse crowd here. There's a lot of Muslims, there's a lot of people from various backgrounds. These are voters, but more than that, this is the right thing to do, and leadership should always do the right thing, whether it's popular or not.
On the counter-protester side, Ontario NDP provincial politician Joel Harden was there, wearing a rainbow suit and waving a transgender flag. Before the event on Thursday, Joel Harden stood up in the provincial legislature, Queen's Park, and called the event a hate rally. Watch this.
We are sadly having to oppose an anti-transgender, anti-queer hate rally that's happening at the foot of the street.
Harden disappeared before I could catch up to him and ask him a few questions about his decision to call the event in the legislature a hate rally. I also had the chance, of course, to catch up with both organizers, Billboard Chris and Josh Alexander. Here's what they both had to say about the event.
It's amazing. This is the biggest protest in Canadian history. I think when you combine the counter-protesters, I think this is the biggest protest and counter-protest in the world. There's probably 1,000 people here, so at least. It's amazing. We're starting a lot of conversations, which is my goal. The only thing that can ruin this is if people started getting violent. So my goal is always to have conversations and to start conversations, and we're achieving that goal big time today. So gender ideology is actually deeply homophobic. When you look at all of the academic studies that have ever been done into gender dysphoria, 80 to 90% of these kids simply grew out of it when they went through puberty. Puberty itself was the cure for gender dysphoria in almost all cases. Now we block the cure. But a majority of these kids historically actually grew up to be gay. It makes a bit of sense when you think about it. An effeminate little boy might grow up to be gay. But my message is one of true body positivity. My message is that there is no right way to be a boy or a girl. If a girl's more masculine, if a boy's more effeminate, beautiful, no problem. If a girl wants to climb trees and play in the dirt and hates wearing dresses, she's a beautiful girl. She's not trans. And we need to get away from this idea that just because children don't conform to sexist aggressive stereotypes, that they were born in the wrong body. That's a psychologically abusive thing to teach a child. And this whole pronoun business as well. When you use the wrong pronouns for a child, what you're essentially doing every time you do that is you're sending a message that that child was born wrong. That girl should have been a boy or that boy should have been a girl. And these kids are in school now receiving this. They're being reaffirmed thousands of times throughout the school year that they were born wrong. And so now they believe that the only way they'll find true happiness is by getting puberty-blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries. That's nonsense. We should be telling our kids they're beautiful just as they are. If they want to do something as an adult to modify their body, that's a different conversation.
So ultimately, this is about education over indoctrination. That's a provincial issue. And Stephen Lecce, the conservative, so-called conservative education minister in Ontario, has overseen the radical expansion of gender ideology in our schools. What's your message to Stephen Lecce, the education minister, and also at the federal level, conservatives who seem to not want to touch this subject with a 10-foot pole?
This is a far-left political ideology that floated around academia for decades, and it's now emerged into the mainstream. And they've been very successful in pushing this because they say this is about helping children to be who they really are. Really? Is cutting off body parts of a child helping them to be their true self? I don't think so. Is stopping the physical development of a child helping them to be who they really are? It's absolute nonsense. This is like a cult that has permeated all of society, and now it's in all of our schools. And we can't let that remain. Our children need to learn how to read, write, do arithmetic. They don't need to be learning about sexual orientations in kindergarten. They don't need to be learning that maybe they're trans in grade 1 or 2. This is just total nonsense. Leave these kids alone. Let them grow up. Stop telling them that they're born in the wrong body.
Quite an impressive turnout. I'm excited to see that people from every perspective have come here. Obviously, I disagree with the multitude of them, but I think it's important that we have discussions. This has been a little more of a hostile environment, so it's been difficult to do so, but we have been able to have a few successful dialogues there, and yeah, all in all, I'm happy. We're starting conversations, and that's what's important. I've been speaking and standing with and supporting little Muslim boys that are no taller than my knee. We're uniting. We're standing together, and that's what's important. This isn't about hate. We're actually uniting. We're bringing people together under one common goal, which is to protect the kids from this gender ideology. Politicians need to, get some rocks and do what needs to be done. I mean, all of Canada has thrown their support behind Pierre Poilievre. He's a coward. I hate to say that the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada is a coward, but he is, and he's not alone. I have an issue with any politicians that's sitting on the floor and ignoring these issues right now. Like we said, the chants here are leave the kids alone, children cannot consent. It's pretty basic stuff. There shouldn't even be a debate here. But no, it's not hateful at all. We're here with a message of love, and we've been giving out Bibles and preaching the gospel and giving the one greatest love story in history, which is Jesus Christ on the cross. So I would say this is a message of love.
Think the tide is going to turn? Think this is going to finally go the opposite direction eventually?
I think we're getting there. Young people aren't going to buy into this for very long, and that's obviously their number one target right now. They want to get to the youth, and it's important that we be there and that they know that they have people that support them and that will support the truth. And I mean, a lot of people ask why we choose to give out Bibles here, whether it's a street preaching gig or a protest, and I mean, I don't see why they can't be the same thing. We're going here, kids are taught a lie, and we're giving them the truth.
Oh, Canada, we stand on God.